Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where in the world you're joining us from. Welcome to our expert webinar, Out of the Shadows, a step-by-step approach to AI governance, brought to you by our friends at Airia. I'm Brian Mink, co-founder and president of Data Science Connect, the world's largest data and AI community. Today, we're excited to welcome hundreds of attendees from all over the world to discuss a growing challenge for data and AI leaders: how to govern AI in an environment where adoption is accelerating faster than oversight. We'll unpack how shadow AI is emerging across organizations, often outside traditional IT visibility, and why this isn't just a security concern, but also a strategic opportunity. This session will walk through practical steps for identifying unsanctioned AI usage, assessing risk, and building adaptive governance frameworks that align with how AI is actually being used on the ground. We'll also explore how governance, when done right, can move beyond control to enablement, creating the guardrails teams need to innovate safely while ensuring compliance, accountability, and cross-functional alignment. We're honored to hear from two distinguished speakers today: Dave Horton, VP of Solutions and Engineering at Airia, and Rahul Parwani, Head of Product Security Solutions at Airia. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items. To make this feel a little more in person, we suggest you add a photo to your profile and include your bio, LinkedIn profile, and other information you want your fellow attendees to see. Next, please take advantage of the Q&A and chat features in the right sidebar. We'll be addressing your questions throughout the webinar, so be sure to upvote the questions you'd like the speakers to address at the end. If you're wondering where your organization stands compared to others on your AI journey, check out the call to action below on how to implement AI governance from Airia. Now, without further ado, I'm excited to turn things over to our speakers. Dave and Rahul, welcome.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks for joining us, and I'll turn things over to you guys.
All right. Hi. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes introducing Dave and I, talking about the risks of AI sprawl and shadow AI, and then dive into what we've been seeing as enterprises kick off AI initiatives. Dave will then talk about his experience helping enterprises through this journey and discuss what you should be looking for as you explore building out your tech stack and incorporate AI into your organizations. Let's dive right in. Dave, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. Dave Horton here. I lead the Solutions Engineering team for Airia. So my background is in data privacy, security, and helping companies build software platforms for large enterprise. And so, a lot of my time is spent with customers on their specific use cases when it comes to AI. And it's quite interesting having this security topic as kind of a component of that conversation. So that's it from me. I'll pass to Rahul.
Thank you, Dave. I'm Rahul Parwani. I'm head of product for security solutions at Airia, and my background is primarily endpoint security and identity and access management. A little bit about the team here at Airia. We were the same team that built out AirWatch, a mobile security and device management company that was acquired by VMware. Most of the leadership then went on to build OneTrust, which is a privacy and governance platform. And two successful exits later, we're onto a third, which is Airia. Airia is a low-code agent orchestration platform that helps enterprises adopt AI through a suite of AI governance and security solutions. So I say this more to give us a little credibility on we have done this before, and we work very closely with organizations, particularly B2B organizations, in building out such products. Our background puts me in this unique position to have established relationships with C-suite executives across Fortune 100 companies. And over the past 6 months, the patterns are starting to emerge with AI adoption. The concerns that these CISOs are raising can largely be categorized into three key themes. The first is that adopting LLMs and MCP servers is exposing these organizations to new attack vectors that traditional security tools cannot address. Things like prompt injection attacks or rug pull attacks. These are not things that traditional security tooling can cater to. The second, which we're going to spend a lot of time talking about today, is AI sprawl and shadow AI, which really keeps CISOs up at night. And the third that we'll briefly touch on is resiliency and ongoing evaluations of your agentic implementations. So that was a mouthful in terms of our introductions, but diving into what we're seeing in the market is almost every B2B solution that you use is pivoting to agentic AI. And most of these solutions even allow you to build agents on their platform. This means that a solution like Workday, Salesforce, or Notion that may already be approved and in use in your organization um, can now go and allow employees to build agents on them without giving security any visibility into what's being done there. So very real example of CISOs realizing after a data leak that their HR team had enabled agents that have had access to all of their employee information, or a sales leader with admin privileges in Salesforce building agents with access to all of your organization's CRM data. And this becomes a serious situation that organizations are trying to wrap their head around. What's worse than these sort of use cases is the simpler and even more pervasive ones, where the use of personal or free AI tooling could expose your organization's secrets. So we see a lot of tooling out there where organizations are concerned their employees are using AI tools to generate PowerPoint slides and are uploading sensitive information into a non-approved third-party platform that explicitly states they can train models based on your data. So these are very, very real concerns that come up. When we talk about shadow AI, it really exposes your organization to these new attack vectors by allowing very simple things to circumvent security, such as a employee could have a personal subscription of ChatGPT and connect it to OneDrive, or users in the EU or the Middle East can be leveraging tooling without realizing that the models that those tools are leveraging are hosted outside of the region, opening them up to regulatory fines. Or even something as simple um, as tooling that may allow a user to upload information that can be summarized, and it's actually able to train on that data just because of the terms and conditions of those services. So your organization is very, very concerned about how to wrap their heads around discovering shadow AI use, preventing it, and offering alternatives to it. Most of the organizations that I talk to start with a very simple use case. It could be as simple as a chatbot that can retrieve corporate data across internal knowledge repositories. And once they've seen and implemented that, they quickly start getting more complex. They branch into process automation and then autonomous agents that can perform high value tasks. And this is where it becomes important to recognize that regardless of where your organization is in the level of maturity that the organization has for AI adoption, it is still continuously evolving. You have to manage change, monitor, and constantly walk through this life cycle for every new use case that you want to light up for your organization. So you may start and follow through this life cycle for that first couple of use cases that you've identified as low-hanging fruit, and then very quickly this turns into high demand from multiple parts of the organization and starts to sprawl. So extremely interesting situation today in the market. the barriers to prototype and the time it takes to build out these solutions is extremely low, which also adds to the shadow AI problem, where if you are putting up barriers and not providing a sanctioned approved method for this sort of usage, it does quickly turn into employees trying to circumvent any measures that you put in place. Dave, you've been working with a lot of organizations. What have you been seeing there?
Yeah, I think when we look at this life cycle, I think identifying and understanding what components we need is part of the exciting part of building out an agent. It's like, what could we do? The actual implementation in a small scale POC is again relatively successful. Is really when we start to look at, well, how do we secure that? How do we monitor it? How do we make it part of our process and DNA? That a lot of organizations will struggle. And so, we've heard stats from the analysts that 88% of POCs don't get off the launch pad. And although that sounds like a negative statistic, I think that's also kind of a positive, because if a POC highlights that there is something that is maybe not aligned with our security posture, maybe it's not as useful as we would have thought for the amount of expenditure. Maybe introduced components that were dangerous to the individuals involved and their data, and that put a stop to it. I think that's more of a positive thing, that maybe your enterprises are considering things very carefully before they launch them, based on history and recent news.
Absolutely. And I think that goes back to highlight that the speed with which these can be prototyped and tested is extremely fast, which allows you to fail fast. So I love that perspective and the optimism there. Definitely a point of contention for organizations as they start looking at ROI or trying to get quickly from a desired use case on paper to implementation. Now, when we talk about shadow AI usage, I think there's a few different approaches that I've seen organizations take. The first is sort of a blanket ban. I was talking to a large bank, which is in the Fortune 50, and they said, "Oh, we are going down the path of a blanket ban on usage of AI, and we are essentially going down the path of whitelisting a single solution that we've identified, but we're not seeing much success." And that was really because their approach to this was based on trying to control the amount of AI adoption across the enterprise. Executives or employees are quick to look at these tools as great productivity multipliers, and start circumventing security measures inadvertently, and not with malicious intent. The ability to react to those becomes another question. There's a few different strategies that I've seen in the market. An example of this is browser-based plugins, where organizations propose distributing a specific browser plugin that allows them to monitor for shadow AI usage or install agents on your device. Essentially breaking this down into, look, when you're talking about shadow AI usage, you're going to be looking at multiple strategies, whether it's at the network level or the app and resource level, or even at the agentic level, being able to do some of that discovery and apply security. Very, very tough problem to solve today. So one individual approach to try and get visibility into shadow AI usage is not sufficient. I was talking to a a enterprise that did go down the path of saying, okay, we're going to block all usage of AI from these corporate-owned machines and require full device VPN and management of these devices. And although I understand that mitigates some of the risk, uh, there's nothing that prevents me from being able to take my phone, take a picture of something sensitive, and then passing it to ChatGPT to summarize that document, because it's too much text for me to consume.
I think as well that this isn't a new problem. I think, even back to the mobile days where it was just becoming an enterprise tool and not just a personal tool. A lot of people wanted to get their work email on their personal phone or on the phone of their choice. For example, your company sanctioned BlackBerry was not cutting it, and you wanted it on your iPhone. And because corporate policy was lagging behind, I saw a lot of customers that found employees were just forwarding all emails to their personal device, for example, using an Outlook rule, or leveraging some other software that would help them to circumvent in a very clever and innovative way. But ultimately, because the end user felt that they could be more productive if they use their tooling and their preference of different options. And so although we think it's a new problem, shadow AI is nothing different from shadow IT. It's exactly the same problem that we're trying to solve. It's just a slightly new slant and maybe a bit more 2025.
And it's more pervasive because you look at some of the consumer grade tooling out there and see how the ease of use and the experience that users have. And it makes it very compelling to move away from traditional enterprise approved tooling that may not focus as heavily on the end user experience.
Absolutely. And moving to like the new way, I think having better tooling or having some options that are much more collaborated with the end employee is ultimately going to be more successful for organizations, because they can get some feedback about what do their employees want to use before they start putting up policies that would block those tools from being used.
Absolutely. So there's a phrase you used that I think you talk about is don't lose sight of the humans that we're enabling. Uh, and that really resonates when we talk about it in this context.
Yeah, absolutely. And people are involved in this process. And so when we're, as a business, looking at, well, how can I enable my teams? I often see there's a dichotomy between the business and maybe the CISO in the organization, or the data protection officer, someone that is ultimately responsible for safeguarding the actions of the company when it comes to people and data. And so on the one side of the coin, everyone wants to innovate, everyone wants to be ahead of their competition, but the impact of not is also a pretty big risk to an organization. And so when we're looking at the mindset over the tools, it's not necessarily what can I do with the technology. It's more about what can the technology do for my company. And so this does shift the conversation more to empowerment rather than dependency on the tooling. Now, I mentioned before, the exciting part is actually maybe in the building. AI is an exciting new tool. There is an education problem, however, with AI. Not everyone is at the same level of understanding when it comes to the benefits, the risks, and the potential. And in practice, what I've seen work very well is hosting AI-focused lunch and learns, hackathons, where you can start to collaborate on ideas that would be collectively adopted, or at least discussed within groups. Real world scenarios, and maybe without the scare tactics can be a way that helps demystify AI and also makes it a lot more approachable. But equally, having open, transparent communication about the company's goals when it comes to AI, maybe even making this a collaborative piece where you have an AI agent, ironically, be your portal for requesting a feature or requesting a capability from an employee perspective, giving that user the ability to request and be part of the design of that AI rather than them having to be forced to go and buy shadow AI because they're not enabled and because they don't have that avenue to discuss. Equally, when it comes to making people part of that process, having regular feedback loops. If you have pushed out a lousy AI application, for example, investing in making agents better, making that part of the life cycle can equally make people feel empowered. They're not just using a lousy tool, but they're also contributing to making it a better tool to be used in the company. But I'm moving to what's the ways that we can help with that power of peer-to-peer. Now, fundamentally, I think people will, when it comes to AI adoption, a top-down mandate might not be the best approach. Mandating certain tooling that are being forced onto employees. Think about the last time your IT department rolled out a new tool and simply told everyone to use it. It's the chances are it wasn't necessarily adopted. People were fairly resistant, or they found workarounds to this tooling. Instead, real momentum I've seen has come from the teams within. And so we focus when speaking with customers on finding who are those AI champions within the business, natural power users that maybe bridge the gap between the business user. So if I'm a legal expert, for example, and I've got a curiosity about technology and AI, that is a perfect persona to have involved in a process where we're trying to have a peer-to-peer influence on, making AI possible in that department. And so having this network of champions can really help foster a sense of success when it comes to implementing these AI processes. And it's not just about the training. It's about building momentum and the movements. I think some of the most successful customers that I've worked with in the last year at Airia have really invested quite heavily in building a movement. It's not just one or two use cases. That might be enough to just prove the concept with the technology, for orchestration that you might want to leverage. But really beyond that, well, what are the next 10 use cases? What are the next 100 use cases? Having some momentum behind it is also something that's incredibly important. And I think we can also speak to that ourselves internally at Airia. We're obviously an AI company, but there's also a big focus on, well, how can I use AI personally to be more effective at my job, and how can I help my team to do the same thing as well? These are all important components of our DNA is using and drinking our own champagne, so to speak, when it comes to what we're building and utilizing. But really, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to comment and say it's been really interesting because in our previous organization, Building Lives, when we tried to scale, it was very much a go hire additional heads and start trying to rapidly scale up. Where now it's changed to very much be using AI agents to augment productivity. So I don't think our spend has changed in terms of the amount we spend on headcount. It's just sort of changing into hiring more experienced folks that may be augmented with agents as opposed to to new hires that might be coming in with lesser experience. And it's been a drastic shift, and we're seeing this across the industry. I think there's a and perhaps I digress, but there's a large sort of debate in the tech industry on is AI replacing people or is AI augmenting people? And I think at least within Airia, we see this as a productivity multiplier, as some of the lowest hanging fruit of enabling AI agents. So.
Absolutely, and organizational buy-in. You typically can't just rip and replace overnight. I think a gradual and clear process to how you adopt new systems, finding compelling alternatives is a key component. I think arguably as well, if you're orchestrating and building, the more time you spend on getting it right, I think ultimately the more successful that will be to the employees and to the company as well that's looking to adopt it. And so, importantly, celebrating the wins. I think when you built an agent that's being widely adopted, I think that should be celebrated by the AI champions within an organization. It's like, hey, we found someone we found a use case, and we've had 14,000 executions this month. And that's that can equate to massive amounts of time saved for a company, or massive amounts of benefit to our customers with a better experience, for example. So I think being able to see and gather and celebrate those wins is a key component of this.
Absolutely. Just for this audience, I think one of the most common questions that I get that I'll let you answer, Dave, is what is the persona of these grassroots champions that you're seeing when you talk to these organizations?
I have been trying to ask myself the same question. In the last year, I have spoken to people from all different departments about their use cases of AI, and I can't really pinpoint a single individual group that I would say, yep, these are the people that I typically speak to. I've worked with companies that are multinational organizations, large, brand names. And the initial spark or lead that we had to go work with this company was in their legal department. Not your natural kind of technologists or innovators, really on the compliance side. And so they can obviously see a huge amount of benefit that AI can bring to the written text that they have to consume every day. And so again, it was a champion that actually came to us rather than the C-suite or the IT teams. But equally, if I look at some of our customers, they're when we're looking at grassroots movement, it's really around, well, what use cases can work in one particular department can actually help others. And so it can spread when things are much easier to find because we've got enterprise search capabilities. I'm able to consume my document repository with natural language questions. That is a use case that not just legal, but my finance, my HR, my IT teams can leverage into their own agents. And so to answer your question, I think I'm still working it out. So everyone's got an enthusiast that is kind of bringing something to push for how do we make agents ourselves? How do we give ourselves a bit more of ownership as to how we steer the ship at our company? And I think I think luckily there's a lot of enthusiasts out there that are kind of driving their companies forwards in some regard.
And these are the same enthusiasts that will go find a alternative solution if you're not talking about these actively and showing that you're making reasonable moves in this direction. So I think it goes back to a lot of the stuff that you talked about, Dave, in terms of communicating and making sure there is a path to this.
Absolutely. And, I think when we're looking at adoption, let's say we found some use cases, we've got the tooling that we need, and we're starting to look at, well, how do we actually apply that to, the early adopters? One of the biggest barriers to AI adoption is complexity. There's obviously other issues around kind of education, etc. But if the new tools don't feel easier to use or better than what the manual process was, then people will stick to their old habits. And so, and as well, if it's not a well-engineered process, they might still turn to shadow tools, for example, to get the benefits and get the satisfaction of that process. And so our approach is often to focus on, as you mentioned, low-hanging fruit, the simplicity to start with. We start typically with a pilot on, with those early adopters. These are people that will pressure test the tools. They'll give us some initial feedback. Part of any solution should be able to gather that feedback and refine, summarize what the findings were. But really, we don't have customers that are really putting a forcing a hard switch. It's really about a step into that process, giving feedback, making some improvements, gradually migrate teams to from those shadow tools to the sanction tools as we go through. So this step-by-step approach typically reduces that friction. But again, it's not all about strategy. It's also about the communication piece. So making sure people understand, the risks associated with the non-sanctioned elements as well as the benefits of AI. But ultimately, the outcome is simple. Having AI tools that feel easier, they feel safer and more rewarding to use than those unapproved ones. And when that happens, the adoption becomes natural. It's not forced. It's something that the company wants to push forward via its employees. But I guess this is a topic that we could probably both chime in on. How do we identify today shadow AI? Even with the best rollout plan, we know that that employees will experiment with AI tools on their own, and I think. Joking aside, like even internally, we're kind of looking and seeing, well, what's the rest of the market doing? That's a clever idea. And so tools being used outside of official oversight, and some of those might be harmless, but others can introduce real risk. And so, one aspect that many organizations are looking to are, well, how do we classify some of the use cases and agents that we might want to leverage? And so on the high risk side, these are maybe obvious, but my customers' data, production code, strategic decision making, all of these can influence a misstep and cause major compliance and outages and security issues. And then, on the medium tier, these might seem kind of light, they're less risky, but they do carry concerns around intellectual property leakage, for example. And then, on the low risk, even grammar checking, calendar scheduling, some of these are pretty powerful and they might seem, fairly low risk. But in order to give an AI tool access to check your grammar, you've got to feed it with everything you type in on a daily basis. And anytime you look at your calendar, it's got to know, well, who have you been speaking with and which companies are they from, for example. So even those low risk examples could be used in some way to escape data from your company. And so really the key is not to panic, but to get ahead of it with some good processes.
And a few weeks ago, just going back to that example of a calendar invite, there was a disclosure where a calendar invite containing an indirect prompt injection was able to easily make it through a co-pilot that was summarizing email or sort of summarizing someone's day. And it automatically retrieved sensitive information and exfiltrated that information out to a third party. And this was a large topic of conversation at Black Hat as well earlier this year. So although seemingly low risk, I think when you talk about security, the attack chains of even these low risk sort of situations can give an in to a much larger problem. So getting
The
back
other thing as
into
well, the other thing to mention as well, like we talk about risk classification here. You know, this isn't new. This is actually being sanctioned by governments now. And if we start looking at, you know, the EU AI Act or the Colorado Act or, you know, ISO 42001, for example, they all talk about categories of usage of AI. And so, you know, maybe even mapping to these standards, adopting those frameworks. It's actually being sanctioned by government, not just within enterprises at the moment.
Yeah, it's a must-have requirement. To your example of the EU AI Act, essentially being able to, you're required to classify your sanctioned AI use, and then depending on the classification, you are required to put certain controls in place. This is just something that organizations have to consider wider than just the shadow IT, shadow AI problem. And it comes back to how do you detect some of these shadow AI usage and some of the practical methods there.
I mean, maybe we could take a moment to discuss that because I think it's an important
Yeah.
component. Is well, how do we detect shadow AI? Just like with you know, shadow IT, it's incredibly difficult to detect if it's not on our devices. But you know, I guess a couple of practical methods might be, you know, monitoring network traffic or you know, looking out for those API service calls, for example. But I'm interested, Rahul, like you sit on in this space. Like, what are some of the common ways that companies are trying to track this down and seeing how big the issue is for them?
I, I see a lot of players in the space talk explicitly about browser extensions. We offer that as well, but I don't think these approaches are sufficient. I think what you have to recognize as an organization is you are going to need to look at this in different layers. You have the network layer, where you could be enforcing this on endpoints if the endpoints are managed, and you have some sort of a browser extension or an agent on that endpoint to help you detect it. You may be doing this directly at the network layer by integrating with your network infrastructure, like your F5s or your Palo Altos of the world. But in addition to that, I think the end goal is to prevent AI from having access to your sensitive data sources. So it also gets to looking at the application layer. So some of the things that we do in-house is also integrate with your services like your Office 365 or your Google Workspace, and we're able to identify which AI applications are connected to those. It's a long-winded way of saying, look, there isn't a magic strategy to detecting shadow AI. You will need to use multiple approaches to try and close that gap. In addition to the network level monitoring, the browser extensions or the security agents, all of which we sort of cover, you're also looking at the application integrations. And this is why we expanded into that space. And then it goes beyond that. It comes back to how do you enable a alternative to this that will encourage use in a safe and responsible fashion. So a lot there. It's shadow AI isn't just a threat that you tell employees to avoid. They are going to notice these tools out there that may make their jobs and daily lives much easier. So
I think
having approved
one of the other
solutions.
tools that I've seen as well, like outside of the technology, to kind of track down what people are doing, simply asking employees, like, what do you use AI for? What processes have you found? And it's incredibly powerful. Like if they're not under any threat, they'll probably tell you exactly, well, oh, I use ChatGPT for this because it saves me time, or, you know, I'm using this tool that helps me manage my my Outlook, inbox, for example. And so, just having some way that you can kind of socialize and get an idea with, what it is that employees are using. I've seen that with customers be actually incredibly, beneficial, because then you know what the benchmark is that you're trying to meet in building a sanction solution, or a sanction process that would be much safer to use, for example. And if that benchmark is below what they are using, you're going to have a bit more of a challenge. And so, ultimately, I think we talk about the negatives of shadow AI, but I also think it's a signal of where employees see value in AI. If we can identify it early, these rogue experiments, can be, safe, approved solutions in the platform that we ultimately build into. So, it is a signal, but it's exactly what it did for mobile. It meant that let's engineer something that is going to make email easy to access on a managed device of your choice. Like that was the end goal that we're now so used to. That was kind of a foreign concept, just a few years ago. So absolutely.
And it also gives you a roadmap of the first use cases that you want to try and tackle. So it's a very valuable step, even though it's the most obvious or low tech.
Absolutely. And then, if we're talking about choosing the right AI solutions, I think, again, we've discussed about the mindset being about enabling and not restricting our employees. But, too often organizations evaluate tools solely on the lens of control and compliance. And, the experience is they're locked down, they're very kind of cut back in terms of feature set, and so adoption just simply won't happen, when that is the case. And so what we really need is a strong foundation, like the ability to build no code or low code options for my pro users, or my AI champions, as we might call them. Both the business, but also developers can contribute to potentially. That's a component of that. And so red teaming, I'm sure you can speak a lot more to this, Rahul, but the ability to evaluate when we have built something, or how safe, how susceptible is that to new attack vectors that we're not necessarily used to or accustomed to.
And there's so much there. I think with LLMs and agents, I think there's jokingly a term that's thrown around, that's we're in the 90s of AI security, because you see things like emoji attacks that were made popular back then, sort of resurfacing as new ways to pass a prompt injection to an LLM and having it do something malicious. And it's funny that it comes full circle, because now we're looking at how do you prevent that from happening with an AI agent and LLM, because we're really just looking at anyone with the ability to speak natural language being able to craft something extremely intelligent that could circumvent agents that may not have guardrails or constraints built into them or around them.
So I mean, in short, so I guess the best AI solutions are the ones that can have that balance between security and governance with, simplicity and empowerment of the front end users. And so, that's really the question: is how do we deliver tools that people want to use, that the business can trust, ultimately. And I guess this is where we sort of lean into the latter end of the session that we have today. Selfishly, we're an AI orchestration and security platform, with AI governance really on the forefront of our minds when developing. And so, being able to build your AI agents with any particular model that you want to leverage, choosing where that is hosted, leveraging technologies like retrieval augmented generation, MCP, A2A. All of these can really give a level of maturity to what that first version of your AI application looks like. I'll pass to you as well, Rahul, to maybe speak some more on, give us a bit more depth on this.
Most of the organizations that I talk to have a AI governance committee that's normally cross-functional, that has legal, security, and business stakeholders that are defining what are the approved models we're going to allow, what are the MCP servers we're going to allow, what are the approved use cases we're going to let people start with. And I think one of the things that we've done really well, and why we see a lot of enterprise adoption here, is we've made that process extremely simple. So we facilitate that use of a administrator from that sort of a committee going in and approving what components you're allowed to build agents with, and then enabling citizen development and making it really easy to have a no-code process to build agents. And then for slightly advanced use cases, having the low-code orchestrator as well, where you can start using code blocks or traditional ML as part of these agents as well. So I think we've done a great job on that, and that's where, if it is an area of interest for you, there's definitely tools out there like Airia, and selfishly I'll say come talk to us. Happy to walk you through it as well. I did intend this conversation to be something you can hopefully take even if you're not utilizing our platform, and find it useful.
So I guess really to round up, beyond deployments, I think having a global team, which we are part of. We operate in 8 countries around the world. We've got development hubs, in 3 different locations. The background that we've had building, large organizations for around security and compliance is really in our DNA. And we're also on the wave of a very exciting and innovative arena. And so 70% of our team, of which Rahul is a member, is R&D, and really focused on researching the market, what are the problems that customers are having, so that we can really address that, build towards what customers want. And so, that's really a strong component of the Airia offering as well. I guess really to round out, I'll pass this one back to you, Rahul. But if we can take something away from the session today, what does it look like from your perspective?
I'm going to give a little bit of a controversial take before I jump into this. And it's, look, I talk to organizations all the time that start saying, okay, we want AI, and we are going to start by kicking off this massive data sanitization or data readiness process. And that's going to be a 12-month endeavor for us. And I think it's important to recognize that there are a lot of use cases that do not require that level of integration. Don't back into the use of AI with the objective to use AI. Find the problem you're trying to solve, and then get into AI adoption. And then sort of rounding it and coming back to the shadow AI problem, I think it's important that as you start thinking about shadow AI, and how you're going to start offering alternatives, you create that inventory. So I've seen organizations do this at faster or slightly slower paces than this proposed timeline as well. But it's very technically, it is feasible. We're seeing large organizations go through these motions of conducting that audit, identifying usage. The survey that you brought up, Dave, I know we had a Fortune 10 company with us just go through that and identify some really amazing use cases that they immediately turned around and said they want to try and build in a sanctioned fashion. So it's things that we would love to help you guys with. But if not, this is sort of a roadmap. Start looking at trying to identify what those solutions are that you may want to officially allow or disallow. then get into the quick wins by implementing some of the basics. I'm sure most of you are, I'm sure everyone has network solutions that they're currently using that are traditional, that are monitoring traffic. It is, I would be surprised if your solution does not currently offer you any sort of filters for AI traffic or known AI traffic like chatgpt.com or Anthropic and things like that. So it's easy to start identifying that sort of traffic from your network. Create some of the basics as to how are people building out the requests. What are the things that you want to tackle first when you think about your AI strategy in general, and then get into the foundational building elements of this. Of if you are approving agents or building agents, how are you doing the classification and governance of these? So you're going to need tooling for this. There is a lot of tooling out there. What I would ask people to think about is, are you going to use point solutions for each of these? Are you looking more for holistic platforms that do a lot of these? It is early in, I use this term very loosely because it is early in the age of generative AI, but it is still very mature for something that has been around for less than 24 months. So a lot there. But I'll pause right there. I do see there's some questions in chat that I'd love to be able to get to.
Yeah, sure. Let's look at the questions then. So we've got one here from James. Do you see clients have better success with security when they are using Microsoft Copilot that has enterprise grade data protection? And what are the best practices or training to address shadow AI usage in that case?
That's a great question. And I think we did see early adoption of AI being limited to organizations enabling Microsoft Copilot. It's just by the nature of security teams having a little more comfort with a known vendor, which is Microsoft. Almost everyone is already using Office 365 or Google Workspace. So enabling those sort of copilots has been low-hanging fruit. What we quickly see is that that is things that you outgrow, and from a pure security perspective, is I'd say that it is no safer than other solutions out there. If you look up terms like the Echo Leak attack, it was something that was such a big deal because it was a zero-touch exploit that was done on Microsoft's Copilot. In fact, the aspect that those copilots have access to every piece of your sensitive information that could be in your email or your SharePoint and OneDrive created an even bigger risk. So yes, I see better success with organizations starting with convincing their security teams using Microsoft Copilot. But from a use case perspective, we see those get outgrown very quickly. And from a security perspective, I do think it's a misnomer that those are more secure. It's just something that I see people have a little more comfort with to start with. And then for the second part of the question, what are the best practices or training to address shadow AI usage? I think, Dave, you covered that pretty well with the steps that you'd recommend in terms of starting with, let's do an audit, let's figure out what your usage patterns are, interview your users. And there are solutions like Airia that help you do this and automate some of this as well. We're not the only solution out there. I would just try to position us as one of the more comprehensive solutions out there that offers multiple strategies to help with shadow AI detection.
Fantastic. And we've got another question. How does Airia's orchestration platform empower non-technical employees and those AI champions? I'll probably take this question, but in practice, we have in our solution the ability for providing an AI app catalog, for lack of a better word, where I can build agents and deploy them to my employees using techniques like SSO and groups, so I can assign very specific and specifically built agents to individuals or groups of people. Now, in this portal that they can access the sanctioned agents that we can deploy. They can also, of course, request new agents that be built, maybe that are more technically, detailed in their need. But users can also create their own. So we've got a capability whereby, with just natural language, I can define, this is an agent I'd like to, for example, create a very specific set of meeting summary notes, for example, that have a SWOT analysis that are linked to them. With natural language, I can just prompt a specially developed LLM that we've got built into the platform, and it will generate me specifically an agent that would help me do that. And so with no technical knowledge whatsoever, just a couple of lines of text as to what I'd like to do and see, I can actually build that in myself. And so again, that's not for everyone, and you might not want to enable that for certain individuals, but it gives you the capability to kind of cater for those non-technical users. And then, in between the no code and the pro code, we've also got teams where I know enough that I can drag and drop, components onto a canvas, and I want to connect this data to this LLM, and I want it to send information to this tool. Again, we're trying to cater for all of these personas, whether it's no code, low code, or pro code in a platform. So hopefully that answered the question. But for non-technical, certainly there are tools and techniques that can be deployed with the platform that we've developed.
And I'll just throw out there that I was surprised in the early part of our journey when we came out of stealth last year, that the early adopters were in fact lawyers and legal aids that were trying to find tooling that they could leverage. And that is not a technical persona, but they had a lot of success in using us. And then if you're watching that legal market, we're very often paired side by side with other players like Harvey. And it's a great example of you don't have to be technical or an expert in AI to start building these agents. The level of complexity that you expose or need to get into depends on your use cases. But there is a lot that a low code or a no code orchestrator can help you achieve. So don't be nervous about trying to pick this up. You also have a community of agents. So from our existing customers, we have a large catalog of agents that they've published as part of our open source community. So you can go look at those as well and use that as a starting template to get you kicked off. And look, I'm really bullish in this space. If you want to talk, even if you're just sort of exploring, feel free to reach out to Dave or myself, and we will be happy to start helping you connect some of those dots.
Thanks, guys. Excellent presentation. Everybody's talking about shadow AI, but I thought this was by far the most actionable roadmap that I've seen in terms of how you actually deal with that within an organization, and many other things that come along with it. So excellent presentation. If you missed any of this webinar or want to rewatch anything, the recording will be available just a few minutes after this webinar ends. If you refresh the page, we'll also send an email tomorrow with the link to our YouTube channel where this will be posted as well. So thank you again to Dave and Rahul. Great presentation. And thank you to our partners at Airia for making this webinar possible. We'll see all you again next time. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, everyone.